How's it going, guys? Today we're going to break down the 7 different lure categories that you should have with you to maximize your effectiveness on the ice and make sure that no matter where you go, from Illinois to Canada, early ice to late ice, you have a lure that's going to work for you to catch just about any species you might run into. I'm not going to break this down into specific lures necessarily, but I definitely will show you my favorites in each of these categories. I'll leave some links below in case you want to pick any of these specific ones that I mentioned up. The first 3 categories are all spoons. They're all different types of spoons. And spoon number 1 is the rattle spoon. Rattle spoons are the most popular ice fishing bait out there. They're the best selling bait every year. And there's several reasons that they are. They come in various sizes, all kinds of colors. They're easy to fish. They cover sound, action, color, and you can fish them aggressively or you can fish them very, very finessey. So these spoons hang in the water vertically and you can jig them, you can quiver them and let that live bait on the bottom hook just dance, and they just absolutely catch fish. Now this particular spoon is a clam blade spoon, rattle and blade spoon. It's a great bait. I really like the clear chamber. You can actually see the BBs rattling around in there. I think that can also be an added attractant. That's been a great rattling spoon for me. Another one is the classic buckshot spoon. This Northland bait has been around for a long time. Probably put more fish on the ice than just about any other bait out there when it comes to ice fishing. And that's a great bait as well. So rattling spoons, from tiny ones all the way up to like your half ouncers, they just flat out catch fish. Alright guys, so category and spoon number 2 is the flutter spoon. Flutter spoons are much lighter, thinner material and they don't tend to sink as fast. And when you let the line go slack, they flutter to the bottom. And that action causes a lot of flash, a lot of vibration. And these baits are much better in clear water than stained water typically, because it's much more of a visual bite. You're not going to pound them. You're not going to have that rattle, shaking and making lots of noise. But fish can see these for a long way, and that flash and flutter of a spoon has always been a fish trigger ever since spoons were invented. And it works really, really well in clear water for walleyes, pike, largemouth, smallmouth. But I don't typically use a lot of these flutter spoons for panfish, although they do make panfish sizes. I've had better luck on bigger game fish with these. Now these both here are clam ribbon leech flutter spoons. These have been around a couple years and are proven, absolutely proven fish catchers. And then this flutter spoon is actually a Euro Tackle live spoon, and it's got a polymer coating with more of a crankbait finish on it. And it's got a big cup in the back and it has a really nice flutter to it. It also kind of dances to the side as you pull it up with that big curve. So that's kind of a unique action, unique bait, and that one works really well as well. So that's category number 2, and that's your flutter spoons. Category and spoon number 3 are what I call the heavy thin-bodied spoons. This is a Euro Tackle tungsten T-flasher. Fish is extremely heavy and it's not going to have a lot of wobble or flash to it from side to side. When you drop it, it's going to have a real tight wiggle and it's going to fall really fast. These you can fish extremely precisely. They're designed to fish more finessey, but tip this with a minnow head or even fish it plain with that little bit of hair or feathers on that hook, and that's going to just dance in their face. And these are super effective for panfish, whitefish, trout. The bigger size tungsten T-flasher from Euro Tackle, these are absolutely deadly in Lake Superior, where you've got all that current. That tungsten just fishes super heavy in that current, stays in your flasher cone, and fishes super precise. Another lure that's been really proven is the clam pinhead minnow. These are both jointed pinhead minnows, a bigger size, and then down to, I think this is like a 16th ounce. The smaller one is an absolute crappie killer, bluegill killer. Tip that with a couple maggots and go to town on those aggressive panfish. And the bigger one is also a killer walleye lure as well. These are zinc alloy, so they're a little bit lighter, but they still fish heavy with that thin profile. They've got a little flicker blade on the bottom for attractant as well. A lot of times you don't even need live bait with these spoons. They just look so real with that finish and that minnow profile. So That's category number 3, your heavy thin spoons. Okay, getting into the 4th category, we're out of the spoons now, and now we're on to one of my favorite baits to fish through the ice, and that is the lipless crankbait, the vibrating bait, whatever you want to call it. These baits typically have a rattle in them. You can hear that rattle, and when you pull them up through the water, they thump. They go boop, 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 boop. And if you pull them real fast, they vibrate. And that is a crazy fish attractant, but not only that, the profile of these baits really resembles a small bluegill, which is one of the top forages in most of the lakes I fish. Small perch, small bluegills, small crappies, they are absolutely mimicking those fish. And for me, I'm not going to show you any other vibrating crank other than the Eurotackle Z-Viber, because in my opinion, there is no comparison. These are the best under ice vibrating crankbait that I've ever used by far, and I really don't fish with anything else. This is the 1/8 ounce size, which I use 90% of the time. For crappies, bass, walleyes, everything will eat that 1/8 ounce size. But if you want to fish bigger, 1/2 ounce size, which are absolutely perfect for like Winnipeg walleyes, big open water fish that are just cruising around, super aggressive. This bait's got tons of rattle, tons of flash. It's going to call them in. But then Eurotackle also makes them all the way down to the micro, which is just an absolutely tiny little crankbait with a little like number 8 or 10 hook off the back. You can tip that with a waxy, and that's a bluegill slayer. So the Eurotackle Z-Viber vibrating crankbait, that's number 4. Okay, so category number 5 is glide baits. These are a very recognizable profile to anybody who's fished ice fish for very long. They're a very, very proven fish catcher. And the cool thing about glide baits is when you jig them and rip them, they swim way out away from the hole, and then they glide back to the center. And they always find center. They're a very heavy bait, and you pull them up and they glide back to center. And if you keep twitching them, they'll swim in one direction like a minnow, and then they glide back to center. It's a very effective bait for bass, walleyes, pike, crappies, even bluegills will hit these baits. So this happens to be a clam tikka minnow, which is the classic profile with the hook on the front, hook on the back, just like the old jigging wraps, which work as well. You aren't going to be breaking any tails off with this bait, and it's just that classic shape that's going to catch fish. Another great bait that I'm super excited about in this category is the Eurotackle Z-Darter 2.0. A little bit different than the classic profile with the front and rear single hook. There is no front hook at all, and the rear hook's been replaced with another treble, more like your crankbait style. The reason I think this is going to be a really effective bait is on the old style with that single hook on the front, you would snag the front of the hole as you were pulling the fish up, and it would catch on the ice and you would end up losing fish. That's eliminated. You've got a rear treble, so if they strike towards the tail of the bait, you're still going to hook them. But the real key is always this bottom treble. That's what hooks the fish. And on these baits, there's a swivel that comes out of the bait right here, and it does not allow that fish to get any leverage on that treble hook. The old style baits had just a clip, and the fish could get in there and lever it, and they would push against the weight of that bait and get off. But they're not going to be able to do that on this bait. It's just too loose and too wiggly. I think you're going to land a lot more fish on it. You've got a polymer coated body, so you're not going to chip any paint with this bait. It's also got that molded tail, so you're not going to have any issues with that tail breaking off. And of course, great Eurotackle color patterns as well. So this is their heavier size, and then all the way down to this little 16th ounce, I believe it is, more panfish size. The tikka minnow comes in this smaller size too, and these are perch killers, absolute perch and crappie slayers. They'll even catch big bluegills at times, and they just mimic those little tiny thumbnail sized panfish that those bigger fish are targeting many times in the winter. So all sizes, all colors, glide baits, gotta have them, and they will just flat out catch fish. Alright guys, bait number 6 is a little bit downsized. This is for more the finesse bite, more for panfish, and that is of course Tungsten Jigs. I filmed an entire video on Tungsten Jigs last season, going in depth on color, size, how to select them. I'll leave a link above right here if you want to see that video. But a tungsten jig is just a way to present either a plastic, soft plastic lure or a live bait in a super finessey way, which in the wintertime is very important. These are both clam drop jigs, which are my favorite series. As a matter of fact, this entire box is all different types of clam drop jigs, from the drop kick to the drop XLs to the ant drops to the swirl drops, epoxy drops, all kinds of different tungsten jigs from clam in all kinds of colors. You just can't beat that selection. They're very, very solid baits. And the beauty of tungsten is it fishes heavy. It fishes heavy for its size, so you can still have a small profile bait, but also have the weight to fish that super, super effectively and make those small movements that sometimes it takes to trigger fish. Now, most of these are really, really small, like 30-second and undersized jigs, but these bigger ones, in up to like a 1/4 ounce, are actually really good walleye jigs, and you can tip that with a crappie minnow, a fathead, you know, or even a couple of Euro larvae, and that's a great walleye offering. Another tungsten jig that I'm super excited to use this year is the Eurotackle ESR Nano jig, and these jigs are designed to reflect your sonar back with a super hard signal for their size, so they're going to be really easy to see on your flasher. You can turn your flasher down and kind of cut out the fuzz and see these jigs really well. But not only that, they're perfect horizontal jigs with a weight forward design that's going to keep that plastic horizontal in the water column without having to adjust your knot all the time. Again, Eurotackle always crushes it with their finishes. The gold is absolutely stunning, flashy gold, which I love. And there's a couple different sizes of these baits as well. So if you want to pick just one thing to catch panfish, it's obviously going to be a tungsten jig. So that's number 6. Make sure you have a nice selection of tungsten jigs with you. All right, before we jump to number 7, I want to thank you guys for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If this video is giving you some value, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe. There's going to be lots more ice fishing content coming this year, and it really helps the channel if you guys can do that. So moving on to number 7. This is typically a panfish deal too, and that is soft plastics. They've really taken some leaps and bounds with these miniature soft plastics in the last few years. There's no need for live bait, especially when the fish are aggressive, when you have choice of all these super finessey plastics for panfish. And my ultimate favorite is still the original Eurotackle Bloodworm. This is a natural food source in many lakes, including a lot of the lakes I fish. Fish just key on that profile, the red. There's just something about that. If you put that on a tungsten jig, you are going to catch fish on it. Another great bait that I had tons of luck with on last year was the Eurotackle zooplankton, or the plankton. And it mimics zooplankton. It's actually a replica of a zooplankton with those 2 arms out the sides and that tail on the back. And there's something about that profile that just drives crappies nuts. I smoked a lot of crappies, especially at night. Put that on a glow jig and drop it down in the basin. They are going to eat it. Third one is the clam Jamie eye. And this bait has a bunch of little legs in the midsection, and then it's got these 2 tails off the back. I tested these in the water and got some footage of them, and they're absolutely awesome little baits. One more here from Billy Rub Baits, and I forgot the name of this one, but he's got a bunch of them. One has 2 tails, I think one has 3. This is the single tail one, but he just nailed the wispy tail action. I mean, you almost can't even hold that still enough for that tail to stop wiggling on these baits. So definitely check those out. And one last one, kind of a different profile from Eurotackle, and that's the leech. It's got a little paddle tail on it, and you can jig that, and it's got a completely different action than like a wispy tail bait would have. So that is the 7th lure category. Hopefully that helps you guys kind of narrow it down to what you really need to bring on the ice to be effective. And hopefully we can see you on the ice soon. Like I said, lots more ice content coming. Watch one of these 2 videos to learn more about ice fishing and tungsten jigs, how to use them. And we'll see you in the next video, guys. Catch you on the ice. Get hooked up.